Hello, it is another Tuesday, which of course means it's time for another in real life video. And this week we are continuing our March Madness, as it were, as we delve into a few extra more ranking videos than usual. We are tending to, this week, a general viewer submitted request to rank player houses. Let's see what exactly they wrote in and said. The user should be somewhere in the lower third of your screen right about now. Now, of course, also, this is a very, very often requested ranking. I tried to double check and make sure that this was the first person who ever sent in the request, but you know, it's a pretty obvious one to do a ranking for, so apologies if that's not the case. Anyway, they write in asking, of course, please rank player homes from the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games. You could do you could do one video for Morrowind, one for Oblivion, and so on. And I think we'll do exactly that. Anyway, like I said, this is one of the most requested ranking videos of all time. I think we'll start off with Oblivion. In particular, we'll focus in on Oblivion Remastered, but it kind of goes either way. There is one notable exception, one notable difference between a sort of player home as it appears in original Oblivion from 2006 and the remaster from a few months ago, right? Well, about a year ago now at this point, at this rate. Anyway, we'll do a quick cut here, and I'll see you after the cut, after the break, in picture-in-picture mode as we'll have up our big stupid tier list. See you then. All right, we are back. Sorry about that. Now, also, as per usual, don't forget, you too can submit any sort of request for ranking or just general questions, and they'll get added to a big document that I have of both rankings and, well, they're kept separate. Usually I try to keep them separate, but sometimes, you know, I mix them up. I get a little too, we get a little wild here with the copy and paste buttons, but so I try to keep them separated. You too can submit requests or questions in either case. Feel free to submit as many or as few as you wish. And it helps a ton if, regardless of what you submit, you include a question mark. Because there was this handy dandy new feature on YouTube, which actually existed for a while, but it finally seems to be working properly, where it can, I assume through some sort of AI or hopefully just an algorithm, it just tries to figure out if you have submitted a question or not, whether or not the comment contains a question, and I use that rather than what I used to do, which was control Fing through a whole bunch of stuff for question marks. Anyway, without further ado, take a gander at our incredible and amazing tier list here that we've put together, as per usual as well, of course. Thank you, and eternally, it is amazing to exist in a world where the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, the fan wiki, one of the, if not the longest fan-run wikis for a video game, or just wikis at all, older than even Wikipedia itself, or so I've heard. But uesp.net, all of these images have been taken from there, and of course, our little text, which are, I find, super duper helpful rather than just having the image. But the text there also is meant to mimic sort of their wiki style. Big fan of what they do. Anyway, we'll start off, I suppose, with some of these ones, which you'll notice as well on this list here. If you've got a keen eye, or if you've got this on full screen, not on your phone, maybe you can see that there's some extra text here. That's because some of these locations, in Oblivion specifically, do not have like a unique name. You know, if you've only ever played Skyrim, you're probably familiar with all of the different fun, unique names for all of the player houses. They all have something fun, you know. But that is not the case for every single house in Oblivion. There are, what, 3? Technically, I guess you could say 4 if you wanted to include the shack, which I don't even think it's technically called Waterfront Shack. I don't even know if that's the case. But colloquially, internally, I know it is Waterfront Shack. Regardless, Anvil, Coral and Skingrad all have their own sort of naming schema where they're well, I guess even Anvil, you wouldn't count it as that. Anvil's a unique situation. You know what? Let's start with Anvil. Anvil, you get Belarus Manor. This is a very peculiar player house. We'll start with the core game. This is a core game player house. We'll scroll up here as well. Core game player house located in Anvil. I want to try to err away from in this ranking. I think I run a risk. Me personally, I run like into a danger of accidentally also ranking too much of the city itself, right? I think what could be an interesting point about ranking these player homes would be, yeah, the architecture of the house, which would in some ways include the city, the neighbors, you know, if there's just so happens to be someone of interest nearby that's could be useful to a player, where you spawn in when you fast travel, stuff like that. I don't want to be married too much and put too much weight into the rest of the city, right? But Anvil is a very good one. I very much enjoy Anvil. I think we've ranked all of the Oblivion major towns and cities and all of that, right? Yeah, we definitely have. And Anvil ranked pretty decently up there. And although I like Anvil, I personally don't really care for Belarus Manor, right? I don't really care for it, despite the fact that Belarus Manor is so unique in that in the core game, I believe it is the only house that you have to do a quest in order to obtain. And it's a pretty good quest. You have to get the manor from the Belarus family and its inheritor, who decides that they don't want it at the end of the quest because, spoilers, as it turns out, it's incredibly haunted by one of their ancestors who is attempting to become some sort of super lich in the basement. It's very fun. It's very enjoyable, a very memorable quest. However, I just do not care for Belarus Manor. And I can't help but wonder if it is because it is so different, right? It is perhaps a blessing and a curse, how different and particular and peculiar it is from the rest of the core game houses. I kind of like the idea of buying upgrades for a house. I do think that there is a bit of an issue in Oblivion, and it continues forward in Skyrim, wherein you have such a proclivity in these games to get an immense hoard of gold. Thus, at a certain point, if it's not your first house, as soon as you get the ability to buy the house, you're probably also going to immediately go and buy every single upgrade at once. The notable thing about Belarus Manor is, although you buy the house and you do the quest, after you get it, it gets cleaned up and decked out automatically. For some, that's amazing. For me, I don't like that. I kind of like the idea of having to go and buy additional upgrades for it. I kind of like that. Granted, I would love it in the future if it wasn't just gold as like a vector for upgrading your house. I would love to get like a little Stardew Valley with it, you know? I would love to be like, oh, you need X amount of these materials in order to get this upgrade or whatever, right? And I believe you do see a bit of that in parts of not the baseline Skyrim houses, but some of the Hearthfire homes, right? The Hearthfire homes do have requirements wherein you construct these buildings, these features for your home, these attachments, these add-ons, and those do require particular things like logs, or, oh, you need like some glass, you need like a weird plant or whatever if you want an like arbor area inside, or a garden or whatever. But Belarus Manor, it's pretty cut and dry. It is, I could totally see a world in which someone doesn't see this as a downside, but for some reason, I just never want to go to Belarus Manor. Maybe it is because of the presence of the quest there, right? Maybe it is because of the presence of the quest. Like, I feel like it's less tied to me. Like, it's difficult for me to call it a home. When I immediately think of Belarus Manor, I think of the quest involving the Belarus family. Lorgren or Logain. No, Logain's from Dragon Age. Lore something Belarus. I think more so of that than like, oh, this is a place to call home, right? It's so haunted. I don't want it after I exorcise the terrible lich from within. Right? I've never once looked at Benaris Manor and been like, yeah, I want to use Benaris Manor. You know? It's so odd. You would think it would be the perfect situation, but alas, every time I can't bring myself to ever chill out in Benaris Manor. And because of that, because of this peculiar situation, very subjective, like I said, I could so easily see these all being winning points for someone. Oh, great, a house where I don't have to buy, like I don't have to get on the good side of the count and go buy all of the individual upgrades, right? Oh, cool, a house tied to a quest. That's interesting. You know, stuff like that. I could easily see those being strong points for someone. But for some reason, in this specific case, I don't like it, and I never fucking use Benaris Manor. I never have used it. Whether it be a playthrough we've done on the channel, or in times of yore before YouTube was just a twinkle in my eye, I never used Benaris Manor, and it's a C rank because of it. Right? I could easily see it be an A ranker for someone. Right? I could easily see it be that if you were inverted and all of those detriments were actually boons to you. Anyway, let us go over to another sort of double name house. How about we hit up Arbor Watch, the Coral House, the house which you are perhaps most likely to see first, but not purchase first, given the fact that so much of the early game of Oblivion kind of directs you to Coral, which I would, of course, I've argued before in the past that it's one of the better cities in the entire game. The design of it is fantastic. It's such a chill vibe being in Coral. However, Arbor Watch itself has fallen prey to mundanity, right? Sure, Coral may be the most iconic, in my opinion, house in or city in all of Cyrodiil, aside from the Imperial City, of course. Right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But aside from the Imperial City, it's maybe, I think, the most iconic city in all of the game. And because of that, Arbor Watch feels so generic, right? It feels like the human fighter, if you will, the human warrior of houses in Oblivion, which is saying something considering I would, let's not be around the bush, I would call Oblivion the game the human fighter of Elder Scrolls games, right? I would call it that. I would definitely go out of my way and say that. And in that sense, it has sort of a unique soul about itself. And I'm not just saying that because it's got it's like the most generic human race is predominantly located there. Certainly they could have dialed up more stuff with the needs and the Colovians or the Roman aesthetic and all that. They just chose not to, right? We leaned more into Lord of the Rings town. But Arbor Watch, I find, suffers from being kind of boring. It's kind of boring. It's located right by the two guilds, right? It's right there by the great oak tree in Coral, sort of in that, if you could even call it a cul-de-sac, right? But it's located there in that sort of roundabout where there's the two guilds, the two guild halls right by you. It's very easy to fast travel to. It's such a quick jaunt away. The smithy is nearby too if you wanted to utilize them. It's got a good location, but I just do not care for Arbor Watch. It's so mundane. It's so plain. It's not bad to be, it's not so bad it's offensive and remarkable in that sense, but there's just nothing to stand out about it. So I think it's middle of the line. It's right there in B, right? I think Arbor Watch is a B rank house. There's nothing too special about it. It'll see you through to the end of the day. It's a solid one, you know? The human fighter. All right, let's clear out this other one. One that is anything but generic in the sense that this is, I would argue, the most metropolitan, the most urban of all houses you can purchase in Oblivion. That being Rosethorn Hall in Skingrad. I don't know enough about architecture, especially as it pertains to, I don't know, medieval times or whatever fantasy Oblivion is directly pulling Skingrad from. I'm very unfamiliar with what you would technically call this, but I'll say it's like a townhouse. It's like a townhouse. It's very, very nice. I like it a lot. If you want a very urban feeling house to where it's like, yeah, I'm in a big city, not quite the Imperial City, because of course the one located inside the Imperial City that you get isn't actually in the city at all. It's very much on the outskirts of the city. So Rosethorn Hall is as close as you can get to the city life if you wanted it. I think it's very gorgeous as well. I like a lot of Skingrad itself. I think it's got like that sort of, I don't know, the urban appeal, if you will. Things of note about it, though, something else that I think brings it up a bit, Rosethorn Hall. It is also in the core game, including or not including any of the DLC. Rosethorn Hall is the player home in which you can actually get someone to like live in your house, right? There were a lot of things in Oblivion's player housing system that seemed like a bit of an afterthought, or they just didn't think that players would connect with it in quite the level that they did. You know, for instance, in Oblivion, there aren't like armor mannequins. There aren't weapon plaques where you can hang up your spoils. You know, if you want to display a weapon or armor, you have to set it down Morrowind style. And unfortunately in Oblivion, especially if you're not playing the remaster, the more often you load into an area, the more likely it's going to just kind of like flop all of the physicsable objects around. So it's difficult to get something locked into a proper display area, you know? Thankfully, with the advent of Skyrim, they realized, oh, actually, a lot of our players love collecting stuff in these games. But regardless, one of the signs of something that they carried forward from this specific house into Skyrim is being able to have someone in your house. A sort of, I think it's either like a, I don't remember the technical term. It may just be that she's a housemaid, right? Or a butler. I forget the term. It's nothing like regional specific, like a house Carl or whatever. There's nothing like that. This isn't like your Lydia. She very much just kind of hangs out. You can talk with her. I think she'll give you food and or drink. It's somewhat useful if you are a vampire. I will say that, which is fitting for Skingrad, I might add. But if you are a vampire, it gives you another opportunity for someone that you can feed on very easily if you decide to chill there at Rosethorn Hall. But of course, I did a full playthrough as a vampire, and it was super unnecessary. I only really went over to feed on that individual in Rosethorn Hall as like a novelty, right? It's super unnecessary if you're careful about how you play as a vampire. Regardless, Rosethorn Hall also has the unfortunate bane to its existence, which is the fact that it is a building which exists within Skingrad. Make no mistake about it, Skingrad is a beautiful place, but if you want to enjoy the beauty of Skingrad, you must fast travel to Skingrad, or at least most people will. And the unfortunate thing about fast traveling to Skingrad is that it is maybe the worst, if not one of the worst, places to fast travel to, major cities to fast travel to, because it always puts you down in that stupid rut valley area between the two halves of the city. So amazing that Skingrad has this sort of defense. There's even an in-game book that refers to it, it being used in a historical like skirmish. It's fun that there's like the cool bridges that you can look up and see. It just sucks a major butt that every time you fast travel to Skingrad, you end up in the bottom of that rut. And it becomes a bit of a task like, ugh, I want to go right here, but to do that, I have to get up this disgusting like slope, and I get to have a face full of shitty looking ground textures, right? It's not great. It's not great. It definitely hurts it a lot because it is just inconvenient. I'm okay forgiving a location being far away from the fast travel point. I can forgive that, but if it's finicky, fiddly to get to where I want to go, that kind of sucks. Because at the very least, if it's further out, I can just blast myself with some like enhance my athletics, enhance my speed, right? Fortify all that stuff up with a spell real quick, and I'm speeding right along. You know, it takes a little bit longer. Sure, that's fine. But what takes much longer and is frankly more inconvenient because it's more button presses is trying to get up some of those hills. It is very inconvenient if I want to go and drop off some crap and store some stuff in my house or whatever, and I have to deal with that. It absolutely sucks. And you know what? Is Skingrad an A or a B? Is Rosethorn Hall an A or a B? I think it's a B rank. I think I'm docking it down to a B rank because of the inconvenience. You know, already in Oblivion, there is sort of a struggle to get players to return to their player home. Because like I said, they are crucially missing a lot of features, a lot of amenities. Yeah, amenities that otherwise would commonly exist in Skyrim and even exist in some of the homes here in Oblivion, more particularly with the DLC homes. But that's neither, well, we haven't gone to those yet. It is here and it is there, but we haven't gotten to them yet. But stuff like, you know, having access to an enchanting table or whatever, that's not around, you know? In Skyrim land, it's a big deal if a house is missing like an enchanting table or whatever, or it's missing in Skyrim's case an alchemy lab. In Oblivion, you get houses that have fun stuff. There are houses that have the spell making altar, the what do you call it? The enchanting altar, all that stuff. It's very useful. But yeah, there's just not much reason to come back to houses. And when you do come back to Rosethorn Hall, it's not a pleasant experience. You're reminded and you're made to think, God, why did I ever choose Rosethorn Hall? It looks so nice. It would be cool if when I fast traveled, I spawned right outside of this nice looking building on this nice looking street. But unfortunately, I spawned down here in this poop trench. Yeah, it's a B ranker, I think. I'm putting it down at B rank. I could easily see someone making the case for A, but in knowing some of the delights that we have left in store, it's got to be B rank, right? Because we're including the DLC houses. If there was a separate tier list that we were doing for the DLC houses, rest assured, this would be a different story. But they are going to actively bring down other stuff in the core game. Right, I think their presence here is going to push other stuff down a bit because I think they are very good. Anyway, speaking of the core game, let's speak on how about Breville. We'll go through this in order right now. Breville is, of course, the Breville house housed in Breville. It's meant to be the poorest city town in all of Oblivion. They have a lot of wood features. There's a lot of like, I don't know, maritime related stuff. There's like a decently prominent dock, but the dock is kind of ramshackle in and of itself. It's not spectacular like Anvil's dock. It's a little more seedy, if anything. And true enough, there's at least one very seedy quest you can get near those docks, right? But Breville itself, I do actually quite like Breville. I do like Breville, despite everyone in the game trying to tell you and frankly gaslight you on the idea that Breville stinks, that it sucks. This is a town for garbage people. It's a garbage city for garbage people. If you're poor, I bet you love Breville, you idiot. I guess that's me, dude, because I love Breville. Breville has got to be one of my faves. I love how many buildings are multi-story. They have sort of that like townhouse situation where there's one living quarter, there's one residence on the first floor, and then you can go up around the back or whatever, and there's another one. And there's sort of stuff like that around the Breville house too. And in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a decently high-ranking trainer nearby. I think an archery trainer, and as well, I believe there's a Thieves Guild fence very close to the Breville house. The only catch about the Breville house, though, is that similar to Skingrad, it's a bit further out, but I don't think it's as bad as Skingrad. Like I said with Rosethorn Hall, it's rough having to, when you fast travel in, having to go a bit of distance, but it's not as bad as having to like finagle your way up a hill, up a slope, which you do have to do in Skingrad. Unless you really go around the long way, but I don't know anyone who ever does that, right? I think I almost 9 times out of 10, I would rather slam on the spacebar and just try and work my way up the annoying hill and just be annoyed every time rather than go around. In Breville, it's like on the opposite side of the city interior, right? Your player house. It's really far off. It's cool that there's like the rope bridge and all of that. I appreciate that, but nonetheless, it's far from a lot of, like the guild halls and stuff. It's far out from them. Though it is handy that, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's really close by a fence and a decently useful trainer. So it does have that going for it. I would say Breville is a B ranker for me. I could see some people rating it or ranking it a lot lower, but I personally have I enjoy Breville. I personally do like Breville quite a bit. Perhaps more so than the usual individual, right? All right, up next, we have Bruma. Bruma is a very fun one because it's very themed, appropriately over and toward Nords, towards Skyrim, which I would assume similar to Anvil, right? Anvil is probably similarly themed. However, there hasn't been yet a main game set in Hammerfell, so we don't really get to see the ins and outs of exactly how those cultural ties are going. And also, aside from the naval/maritime vibe of Anvil, I don't know, it doesn't feel that Redguard, whereas Bruma feels very Skyrim. Am I wrong about this? Does Bruma feel, how about this? Riddle me this. Does Bruma feel more Skyrim than Anvil feels Hammerfell? Because I think the answer is yes. I think Bruma feels significantly more Skyrim, which is very fun and very cool, especially leading up to the release of Skyrim, which I remember vividly going out and hanging out in Bruma and by that player house and thinking man, this is what it's going to be like, right? I remember going out to Bruma and looking around and thinking man, Skyrim, this is it pretty much. This is going to be Skyrim. Snow everywhere. That's wild. Little did I know there wouldn't be that much snow. There'd be some snow, but not that much. But Bruma, I feel like the Bruma house as well very much captures the Skyrim vibe. It being this log cabin, it has the sort of Viking longhouse situation going for it. I like it a good amount. And it's decently located right next to the fast travel point when you fast travel into Bruma. It's pretty good. You just head on in a little bit and then turn to the right. Correct? With the Bruma house, it's right there. I think maybe the worst thing about it is that, spoilers, depending on how far you are in the Mages Guild quest, the Mages Guild in Bruma will no longer be there. So you do lose out on a little bit of that. Handily, though, there is Ongar the Wary, a fence that you get early on for the Thieves Guild. So that is a bit of a boon. He's a bit further away from the Bruma house, usually. But he's a very memorable fence because you actually meet him as part of the Thieves Guild quest arc. So it's not too difficult to have to try to remember, like, oh, there's a fence here. Whereas I find, like, actually a lot of the Thieves Guild fences in Oblivion are, you literally don't even meet a lot of them. But it's difficult to remember who they are and where they are. Whereas with Ongar the Weary, particularly in my last playthrough, it was very easy to remember where that guy lived, right? It was very easy. And because of that, is Bruma an A ranker? Mind you, Bruma doesn't really have anything cool and unique about its interior, I think, as far as I remember. But maybe in light of having played Oblivion before Skyrim came out, Bruma is made cooler, right? Bruma was sort of like, we were getting excited for Skyrim to drop, and we went to hang out in Bruma, and we had a good time. You know, I don't know if anyone else did that, but I sure as hell did. And you know what? That makes it it's an A ranker for me. All right. Up next, Cheydinhal. Another core game house, and a house which I would argue is perhaps the most beautiful house in the entire core game. It's got this, once again, I don't really know architecture. I would describe this as like sort of an English Tudor, right? It's this is such a, like, not ultra wealthy, but like a middle class looking, well, no, it's definitely kind of wealthy, right? It's definitely kind of ritzy. Yeah, it's kind of like a more ritzy, like Baroque situation going on, right? This is, if I'm playing RuneScape and I'm like in a fancier, like members only area, the buildings, I imagine them looking kind of like the stuff in Cheydinhal. And Lord knows the Cheydinhal house looks spectacular. It is undoubtedly my favorite looking house in the core game. It is somewhat near both of the guilds, right? It's kind of in the same region. You get to, it's decently located near the front, like, fast travel point. It's kind of, it's about midway through, right? It's not super close. It's not terribly far. It's not like a Breville situation. It's certainly not Skingrad where you have to jump up a damn slope. But it's fun. It is very expensive, right? This is the most expensive house in the game. They know what they got. Don't try to lowball them. Otherwise, Cheydinhal itself, the Cheydinhal house, I just very much like it a lot. The big issue with it, all right, especially coming off of just commenting on sort of the splendor, the cultural splendor of Bruma, and perhaps how Anvil in some ways could be lacking. There is no worse offender than Cheydinhal. Cheydinhal is, as far as cultural influence concerned, is abysmal. Cheydinhal sucks so much when it comes to the idea of, oh, this should be a city that is heavily influenced by Morrowind. Could have fooled me, right? They go out of their way to mention, when you talk to people, oh yeah, there's a bunch of Dark Elves, a bunch of Dunmer live in this city because it's so close to the border of Morrowind. Right? Oh, the Count here actually was a House Slalu nobleman, right? You get to hear all of this stuff, but it's a real case of show don't tell, right? Or at least failing to do so. They tell you at every step of the way, the population reflects it. There's even the drunk guy singing, Flying, flying, fly so high. Flying cliff racer flies across the sky. The drunk guy. Amazing stuff. But nothing about the city evokes Morrowind whatsoever. Maybe you could make a case for the fact that, like, it has the stream going through it. Maybe that you could say, like, oh yeah, this evokes some of the, like, some of the, like, West Gash region in some way, or some of the swampier towns of, like, Seydanine or Hla Oak. But I don't think so, dude. You ain't fooling me. Cheydinhal does not evoke Morrowind whatsoever. But that said, very gorgeous house. Very, very gorgeous house. It is the worst cultural representation of a lot of people's favorite fantasy culture in the Elder Scrolls, that being the Dunmer. And it just fails on every count of it being that like insight into, oh, this is what it was like in Morrowind. Which in and of itself is a bit of a problem with Oblivion, right? In general, wherein there's not a lot of that cool exploration of like the different races' culture, which is such a huge fun point of Elder Scrolls in general, I would say, right? It's so much fun in Skyrim and Oblivion, how there's like different cultures and subcultures and getting to explore them. And it's a little homogenized with Oblivion. It's a little homogenous. But that said, it is a very beautiful house. It is very beautiful. You know what? It's between an A and B. It is between A and B. It is so gorgeous. Does its extreme beauty make up for everything else? You know what? Fuck it. It does. It does. It looks so nice. Even though, look, listen. Listen. Cheydinhal and the Cheydinhal house looks so amazing that when I go by it, I never even think of entering it, right? Because in Oblivion, what reason do you have to enter these houses? You know? There's no major reason to enter any of these damn houses, except for maybe the DLC ones and perhaps a skin grad one. There's just very little in the way of amenities. You know, maybe you need to sleep, but shit, just sleep in the middle of the fucking wilderness or go rent an inn. But you know what's nice about it is going by the Cheydinhal house and just looking over at it and being like, yeah, man, this town is beautiful, right? I really am in the most beautiful city in all of Cyrodiil, right? That's what you get. That's the treat of living in Cheydinhal and having the Cheydinhal house. You go over to visit the Mages Guild in Cheydinhal. What did they even want you to do? Jump in a fucking well and die? Is that Cheydinhal? I think it is. Regardless, when you're walking over there to go die in a well, gosh, you get to look over at the beautiful houses, and perhaps you too own one of them. And you know what? That can perhaps be just enough to carry you on and let you not die in a well. It's gonna be bad if this isn't the one where you die in a well, or almost die in a well. Anyway, let's finish up the core game with the two last houses. We'll start, I guess we'll continue going through here in alphabetical order. So up next is Leyawiin. Man, Leyawiin sucks so much, right? At the very least, Leyawiin doesn't hardly even, like, there's very little in the way of saying, like, oh yeah, Leyawiin has so much cultural influence from, elsewhere, or from Black Marsh nearby. It's implied that it does, but they don't go out of their way to say it, aside from the fact that there's a bunch of, what would you call them, expats. There's a lot of the Khajiit and Argonian diaspora in Cyrodiil exists here in Leyawiin, and in some degree Breville, but it's predominantly Leyawiin. If we look at the Leyawiin house as well, dude, it sucks. It sucks so much, doesn't it? Doesn't the Leowin house is like, the Leowin house carries with it the generic mundane attitude of the Coral house, but it's hideous. It's terrible. It's right next to a big gross ass swamp thing where, and I'm not talking about the Argonians, but it's right next to a big old nasty like swampy pond where, correct me if I'm wrong, but depending on what quest you do, a lady dies in it. And there's also a guy who gets naked and swims around in it, which actually could be kind of cool. Actually, the idea that there's a guy who goes around and gets naked and swims in it, I don't know if he actually gets naked, but he's meant to go around and swim in it for a bit, or at least kind of stand by it. The Argonian dude. That's kind of cool. But otherwise, man, the Leowin house, I think, is so bad. Honestly, I think Leowin just sucks ass so much. Leowin is like my least favorite of them. You know what is? The people of Leowin are very funny. There's a lot of kooky characters in Leowin, but we're not ranking them. We're not even ranking the city. We're ranking this shitty house. And you know what? This house is probably our first D rank house. Dude, fuck the Leowin house. I don't care how easy the city might be to navigate, how close it could be to any of the guilds. I mean, shit, the Leowin Guild Hall. You know? Like the Leowin Mages Guild, is that even one of the Mages Guilds that you do questing at, aside from getting your... Yeah, I think it's you just get your recommendation, no? And the Fighters Guild there. Is the Leowin Fighters Guild the one with the what do you call it? The rival Fighters Guild, the black, it's not Blackwater, but it seems like it's very clearly a nod to Blackwater. But either way, Leowin stinks, and the house is the worst of it all, right? The Leowin house is so ass, you know? It's not even like a fun kind of ass. Like if you want, it's not even a fun kind of ass. If you want a fun kind of ass, look no further than Breville, right? If you want to like slum it up and be like, yeah, my character is like a nasty pervert, or like I'm broke as hell, you know, I live in Breville, or alternatively, I live in the Imperial City waterfront shack. That's right. We're talking about the last and final of them in the core game, at least. The Imperial City's shack. I gotta say, this is the funniest fake out of all damn time of having an Elder Scrolls game set in Cyrodiil where you can go in and chill out in the Imperial City, and you can't even buy a normal house in the Imperial City. The house that you can buy in the Imperial City is instead a shit shack just on the outskirts, fortunately very close by the Thieves Guild HQ. So you get a pretty good fence, and a very memorable one too, and a good quest giver if you decide to join up with the Thieves Guild, in the form of Armand Christophe, who very frequently is out there at night, and it's easy enough to remember, hey, he's often out there. And if you do a lot of crime, like myself, if you love crime and doing crime, then this is the place to be, because also, not only is it near Armand Christophe, who can clear your bounty, but this is also a player home which is not within the confines of the city, at least within the core game, right? To reach the waterfront shack, you can just literally walk across without zoning from like the gates of Kavach straight to the shack. You don't have to go through a periphery zone to enter like the boundary of the city walls itself, you know? It's the only instance of that in the core game. That in and of itself, I think, is impressive. And then we should come to the other point about the waterfront shack. It's iconic as hell, right? Look, we talked about a lot of houses here in the core game. But is there any more iconic, singularly iconic house in all of Oblivion, even including the DLC? Fuck it, include the DLC, dude. I think the waterfront shit shack, the love shack, the cheapest, most rundown dog shit house in the entire game, it's effectively one room. I think it's the most iconic house of the entire damn game. It is the most memorable house. If someone sees a picture of this waterfront shack, be it in Oblivion Remastered or Oblivion 2006 original, shit, show them a picture in a full conversion mod of Skyblivion, and they will immediately know what the fuck you're talking about. They will know, you will feel a kinship with this other individual as they regale in the memories of the waterfront shack. It is spectacular. It is one of the highlights of the entire game. Am I willing to go out and say I'll say it. It is one of the highlights of the entire game. It's one of the cultural touchstones of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, is owning and visiting this stupid waterfront shack, right? It is literally part of the cultural zeitgeist surrounding the entire game, right? If you were to associate 5 memories that you have with 5 formative memories of Oblivion, if you were to just throw them up on a pegboard or a cork board even, waterfront shack, the shack in the Imperial City, that is 100% going to be one of them. I think for 75% of people will touch on the stupid shack, right? It's gotta be the stupid shack is elevated to icon status. If not for the fact that Skyrim became so massively popular and so many people have played it, Waterfront Shack would have let's be real, it gives Breezeside, or is it Breeze Home, a run for its money in Skyrim, in Whiterun, the Whiterun house. It gives Breeze Home a run for its money for being most iconic Elder Scrolls house ever. And for that, we got to give it S rank. We got to give it S rank. You know, what is more iconic and just symbolic of the Oblivion experience? Dog, if you haven't bought the waterfront shack and moved at least a little stupid item in there, whether or not you earnestly slept in it or you did the Thieves Guild arc out there, if you haven't fucked with the waterfront shack in some way, did you really play Oblivion? Right? Did we really play the same game? I don't think you did. Get your ass out there, get out to that shitty waterfront and buy that fucking shack. I feel it's if there were required gameplay for getting the Oblivion experience, it would be interfacing in some way with this stupid shack. That is how important and vital it is to having experienced the breadth and wonder of this game. Waterfront shack. All right. Let's hit up some more. We're now delving into microtransactions, or DLC as we call them these days. But rest assured, this is some of the stuff that originally, way back in the day, back in the Xbox 360 era, in particular, it was on console that they caught the most flack for it. But including these houses as DLC microtransactions, it was a big deal, and a lot of people were up in arms about it. But these days, it's not something we have to worry about because almost everybody is going to be playing Oblivion either through the remastered version, which has all this stuff baked in, or the 2006 Game of the Year edition, which also has all this stuff baked in. So first we arrive upon Battlehorn Castle. The fun thing right away about these DLC houses is that they are heavily themed, right? Which is, I think, brilliant. It's amazing. I love all 4 of these because of their theming so much. They have such a strong, identity because they're all themed around being like either a fighter, like a warrior, some sort of knightly character, which would be Battlehorn Castle, or being some sort of sneak thief who's interested in stealing stuff and breaking the law, or someone who is interested in breaking law of murdering people and being like a sicko psychopath, and of course a mage, a wizard lord. And this Battlehorn Castle is your more generic like fantasy fighter one, right? It is the human it is the human fighter of DLC purchases for Oblivion. But it's got to be said, Battlehorn Castle is pretty dope. Battlehorn Castle is pretty all right. Now, it's true you don't get all of the amazing amenities present in something like a Frostcrag Spire, right? Frostcrag Spire, I think you've got some pretty useful tools available there. But make no mistake, as far as like a role-playing experience, you have like a whole staff present in Battlehorn Castle. You get people who will deal in like foods and wines. You got like a smith out front. There's even like secret areas inside of Battlehorn Castle. There's a secret like lower area with the weird freaky shit going on in like the crypt or basement or whatever it's called. It's super fun. On top of it, on top of all of that, Battlehorn Castle gives us a vision into the future of Hearthfire homes in Skyrim and the ability to create taxidermy. Here in Battlehorn Castle, there are some like pedestals or whatever that you can decorate with, I don't know, taxidermy versions of creatures that you've slain. Obviously taxidermy is a little fucking creepy in and of itself, right? I feel like maybe the taxidermy would have been more thematically fitting inside of Deepscorn Hollow, but I digress. As far as like a trophy for your hunt or whatever, it is kind of neat that you can go out and collect like some Daedroth teeth and then bring them over to your taxidermy specialist and they'll whip up sort of your own pick of how you want to customize the main like entry lobby hall area, you know, your great hall. It's pretty cool. It's pretty dope. It's pretty neat. I love the additional factor of player agency. I really like Battlehorn Castle. I think it's underrated. A lot of people do see it as like the human fighter of the DLC purchases, and rightfully so. But it does have just a few extra little doohickeys here and there. And I think Battlehorn Castle is an S ranker, dude. I think it's an S ranker. All right. Up next, we come over to Deepscorn Hollow. Deepscorn Hollow, like we had alluded to before, is the more sinister, like Dark Brotherhood aligned quest, or Dark Brotherhood aligned hideout, if you will, player home. If Battlehorn Castle is the Fighters Guild, this one's the Dark Brotherhood. It has some interesting stuff going on in it. It's a bit difficult to reach, but eventually once you get the fast travel point, it's no problem. It's got some mysterious inner workings. It has a guy that you can feed upon if you're a vampire, which to me sounded very cool, but at the end of the day wasn't really. I think it presents you a very simple way to cleanse your own vampirism. Correct me if I'm wrong. I forget exactly what all of the weird, like, I don't know, rock salts or whatever it was that were down in there. I forget what those were all about. It presents you as well with like a weird poison, I believe. Most notably, I think, is the vampire bed. There's the casket that you can sleep in as a vampire, and also the freaky Sithis shrine. Isn't it a Sithis shrine, or is it no, it's Sithis. Yeah, it's Sithis. It looks so wild. Even in the original 2006 game, the weird freaky shrine looks so fucked up and wild. It is like, if this is your vibe, this is meant for you. This is fantastic stuff. The whole area itself gives major, to me at least, Dungeon Keeper vibes, like the way in which everything is very like square tile based. It very much evokes Dungeon Keeper 2 to me. I can pretty much hear the pitter patter of little imps running around mining and hauling gold and hearing the narrator say, "It is payday." But fantastic stuff. I think it's not my aesthetic, but I do think it's fantastic. What I would say kind of sucks about it is a lot of the amenities are very niche and are ultimately kind of not terribly needed. We mentioned the stuff with regards to being a vampire, because I did play through almost the entirety of Oblivion Remastered as a vampire. And I gotta say, it's not as cracked up as you would think it would be. The vampire-specific amenities in there were like non-starters. Like, I could have easily gone without them. Right? They're redundant. They feel very redundant. If you're already playing a vampire character, it's just not necessary to make the trip out. You know, this is something, like we had said, a lot of Oblivion player homes kind of suffer from this, in that there's not that big of a reason to return to your house, you know, to stash away these things in a treasure chest if you even want to keep them or whatever. And even if you do want to keep them, you're just stashing them away into a container. There's no cool like displays or whatever for all of your adventures and whatnot. Something that they learned by the time Skyrim rolls around. But regardless, it's pretty neat. And because of that, although the amenities kind of stink, you know, it's an A ranker. The Sithis Shrine in there is completely unforgettable. It's fantastic. It looks so wild. It may be the most, in a game where you can go to what I can only describe as a version of hell, a game in which you regularly visit hell. This has maybe the wildest, most fucked up looking visual in the entire game. That Sithis little shrine in it with all the hands and stuff reaching out. It's gotta be the wildest visual in all of Oblivion. It's got to be. Anyway, up next, we have one of my old favorites, Dunbarrow Cove. This is the more Thieves Guild oriented little, what would you call it, player home. This one has a huge lore dump in the form of some pirate journals that you can read, which I didn't find that cool. You know, we've certainly read plenty of cool and interesting books in the Elder Scrolls as a franchise as a totality, but that one was a little, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of inoffensive. It was middle of the line. But Dunbarrow Cove itself, very fun if you've got like a piratey theme, and it comes with a whole bunch of cool items to theme your character around. If you do want to lean into the pirate theme, you get access to the, I forget exactly what they're called, but the leveled like cutlasses, the sabers that you can get, they scale to your character level. So if you go there at like level 20 or 30 something, you get the highest ranking one, and it makes like a solid weapon on high difficulty or whatever. But you know, if you're using a melee weapon on high difficulty, you're probably just running with like enchants and weaknesses and all of that stuff. But regardless, a very fun piratey themed place. You get a whole crew. There's a great little amenity in the form of the lockpick training chest or whatever it's called. That is actually super duper useful for any character to just power train and power level your own lockpicking. In addition to the fact that you can send out a whole bunch of like shirtless men to go collect booty for you, and eventually they'll report back and all that. There's some neat stuff. There's also a decent fence there, right? The vendor associated with that place is all right because, like I said, I think they function as a fence. and they have a decent chunk of change too. It's a pretty good place. I would say that it is. I'm trying to remove my own personal nostalgia for it, for the booty hole, wherein I collected a whole bunch of butts and stashed them. So I would say it's an A ranker. I would say it's an A ranker. Dunbarrow Cove is an A ranker. One of the cooler things is also sometimes you'll see your pirate crew out in the world, right? So we had a few times in the Oblivion remaster where we saw them outside of Dunbarrow Cove. One of the worst parts of Dunbarrow Cove, though, is undoubtedly the fact that, like, you spawn outside of it, and then you have to, like, swim over to the grotto entrance, and then there's a bit of a walk to get into anything important, right? It's kind of a pain, but it is fun to get it as well. There's intrigue in the fact that, like, it's filled with... Isn't it filled with, like, pirate ghosts or something like that? You end up killing them and taking over the place. It's very neat. It's very fun. And I think it very much fits the vibe of Anvil. You know, it fits a lot of, like, the aesthetic of Anvil, having this, like, buried pirate ship underground where there was, like, a big cave-in and all of that. Anyway, up next is the last of the four DLC player homes. This is our Mages Guild one. Frostcrag Spire. Frostcrag Spire, let's not beat around the bush. It's so good. Frostcrag Spire is so very good. Already, high benefit point. It's this amazingly cool tower where when you fast travel to it, you're put outside of the tower, but you're not too far off. It's easy to get inside, and because it uses this elevator system, you're never too far from any floor. Oh, you want to go up to the garden and harvest some of the alchemical reagents? Perfect. Oh, you want to go store away some of your stuff in the big vaults below in the basement? Perfect. Take the elevator in both counts. Take the magical transportation elevator teleporter pad. Similarly, oh, you want some, like, filled soul gems? Guess what? The imps in the basement respawn, right? The imps in the basement, great source of souls if you want them. Similarly, oh, you want to go and make your own custom spells or do some enchanting? You know, one of the best parts of Oblivion, I would argue, mechanically speaking at least. You can even forsake and forego bothering to go through and do the Mages Guild recommendation quests, which would normally get you access to the Arcane University, which would get you access to, like, their spell-making altar and their enchanting altar and the Chironasium and all of that. Normally you would have to go through all that to even get access to those, let alone filling out your repertoire of different spells and enchants and whatnot. But thanks to Frostcrag Spire, if you hit up Frostcrag Spire and you get stuff situated there, you get the upgrades running through, you're ready to go. You don't even need to worry about doing the Mages Guild right away. Granted, personally, I did, right? I felt like it's a little too easy. It's a little too cheaty to be able to do it. But for those who may want to, right, especially if you've played through the game before and you're like, I don't really want to go through the fuss just yet of the Mages Guild, or I'm role-playing this character exclusively as hating the Mages Guild. I'm a fighter or something like that. This gives you an out. This gives you an opportunity. It's super neat looking. I absolutely love it. It's got some of the best amenities in the entire game, purely off of just relocating some of the harder to reach amenities from the Mages Guild. It also has the cool teleportation pads that send you to different guild halls, different Mages Guild halls across Cyrodiil. There's even the one that could send you to Kvatch, but they made it broken because, of course, you can never go to the Kvatch anything because it's obliterated. A very fun nod there. And I would be very remiss to not remark on this being the one big difference between core 2006, original 2006 Oblivion and the remaster. we alluded to it at the start of this video, that there was one of these that was very different depending on it. Obviously, you know, if you preferred the old art style, there's no way around that. If you prefer the new sort of zhushed up aesthetics and higher poly count and all of that of the remaster, there's no way around that. The one major point, which I think it's an objective truth, Frostcrag Spire in Oblivion Remastered looks so fucking cool. If you have played Oblivion Remastered at all, if you have seen someone else perhaps play Oblivion Remastered at all, you will know for a fact that in the original game, you would be able to see from almost anywhere in the game, anywhere in Cyrodiil, you could look to the center of the play area, and chances are, unless something was in your way, you would be able to see the Imperial City. A low level of detail version, granted, but you could see it. A fantastic development in open world design, and a huge leap over what was possible in Morrowind, wherein we were very much limited by fog, right? But you can see the Imperial City. You can't see, however, because of these technical limitations, in the 2006 release, Game of the Year edition or otherwise, you can't see Frostcrag Spire, even though you would think you might be able to, because it's an immense structure, it's super huge, super tall, and it's in a very prominent location. Oblivion Remastered gets around that, and it is fucking amazing how you can look up onto the mountain range, up there. You look, your gaze turns toward the Gerald Mountains, and what do you see up there? My God, that's it. The Frostcrag Spire. You see it right there. It looks so dope. Even more so if you're traveling out in the northern reaches of Cyrodiil, and you get to see some of the Aurora Borealis from Skyrim eking through the northern border. Or the Skyrim southern border, and you get to see the Aurora Borealis, and it takes on the backdrop behind the Frostcrag Spire. It's amazing. I think Frostcrag Spire, thanks to the remaster, is now easily the most gorgeous player home in the entire game, and it's so... I've remarked on this so much, but it's so fucking cool being up there. And looking, you can see so much of the rest of the landscape if you got your shit cranked up. You can see so many amazing little sights and stuff from so far away. The draw distance is incredible. I would have to imagine that if you're playing PC original Oblivion, there's stuff that replicates this, like mods would replicate some of this enhanced draw distance and whatnot. But I gotta say, the remaster really, really makes it look amazing. Going from both ways, right? If you're out in the wilderness and you look up to the mountain range and you can see Frostcrag Spire up there, it looks amazing. It looks so dope. Alternatively, you're up on the tippy top of Frostcrag Spire and you're looking around. You can see those mountains over there? Folks, we know the rest. You see that little town, that little village, that city? Oh, you can see Coral from here, let alone Skingrad. Oh my gosh, you can just speed up your character, apply some fortify speed, enhance your athletics, your acrobatics, and just hop, skip, and a jump away, and bam, you're immediately at that city. It's amazing. It feels so cool. It's fantastic. I absolutely love what they did with Frostcrag Spire from a visual standpoint. And even ignoring that, I think Frostcrag Spire would still be an S ranker, purely because of its functionality. The amenities and its ease of access and transportation is top shelf. It's so good to be able to travel around it. Woe unto those who refuse to enter the Wizard's Tower, because it is spectacular. Anyway, finally, we come to the Priory of the Nine, introduced with the Knights of the Nine DLC. Personally, I would not have even considered this a player home, but UESP.net actually considers it one because I think predominantly due to the fact that when you finally complete the Knights of the Nine quest arc, it becomes fully fledged like a home. All of the containers throughout the quest I think I want to say they said it was either all the containers on the lower floors or the top floors of the buildings are unprotected. But then by the time you finish the quest arc, the flags for those containers, they all change to where it's safe to put everything inside of it, right? You don't have to worry about some new, like a cabbage spawning in there and getting rid of your stack of like 29 diamonds or whatever, you know? You don't have to worry about losing your Daedric artifacts if you just so happen to stash them in a barrel and then whoops, looks like a hoe just respawned inside and removed it all. Now that's pretty neat. Unfortunately, I don't really like the Priory of the Nine, and I think it's for a similar reason to the reason why I dislike Benares Manor, because I so closely associated with the Knights of the Nine. I could never see myself living there as a player character. I couldn't see myself setting that up as like my main base of operations. It is kind of neat how there's the other knights there, and they have like fun idle chatter and all of that. You go by and you talk to them. Granted, that is also a downside. If you decorate with like food and books and stuff, you stash a whole bunch of books in a container. If there are other Knights of the Nine nearby, they could just take your book and start reading it and it's gone, right? They could just do that. They could just eat some of your apples or whatever that you decide to stash around. You're like, oh, I want to make some restore fatigue potions later. Level up my alchemy again. That's a risk because you have not just one other person, but you have a whole bunch of other people around who will do these things. I do love the location and all of it, but like I said, so much of it I associate with the Knights of the Nine experience. It's so weird for me to even think of it as a player home, right? Like it's bizarre to consider it in that way. I don't want to reiterate myself too much here from when we spoke on Benares Manor, but it is a lot of that same feeling, right? It feels like this belongs to the Knights of the Nine. This isn't my player home. Sure, they live here, but I can't live here. You know, if I'm going to be some sort of knightly character, I'd rather go live at Battlehorn Castle, right? Granted, you don't get a lot of the like, more like supernatural, holy theming around being like a crusader for the Knights of the Nine. You don't get a lot of that. But I don't know. I just too closely associate it to that quest arc. I can never see it as its own player house. I can't see it that way. And as far as amenities go, it is nice, the like ghost buffs and stuff like that, and having the set of armor. But the problem is like if you want to do a whole bunch of stuff on one character, which I do, once you start doing crime, whether it be deliberately or I guess accidentally, you run into issues with the Knights of the Nine, right? And you also run into issues of people being like, I used to think you were a hero, even though you are trying very hard to be a hero. Me, I didn't care so much running into that because I was trying to be a piece of shit criminal asshole, right? I didn't care that people would sometimes be like, I used to think you were so cool. You were a holy knight. Turns out you're just a sack of shit like the rest of us. I didn't mind that so much. But for some folks who genuinely are wanting to be and like play into that trope, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks if you have to go through all that. But what can you do? For me, like I said, it's a very personal list. It's always subjective with these. For me, I think we got to put it right next to Benares Manor. I just can't unsee it as anything but a Knights of the Nine like quest hub. You know, in the same way that I wouldn't ever think of, what do you call it? The Dawn Guard Fortress. I wouldn't ever think of that as a player house. I wouldn't ever think of like Volkswagen Castle as a player house. I also wouldn't think of the Priory 9 as a player house. I just don't include it there. You know, it doesn't register for me, right? It's a neat place, but not for me. Anyway, that ought to do it for our tier list of all of the player homes in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. There are other places that you can get. I believe the UESP article on Oblivion player homes even remarks on this, that there are like less officious player homes that you can get, wherein like all of the people in this house have died. It's now safe to store stuff inside of this house if you want to claim it. You know, sort of like what we had to do back in Morrowind days if you didn't want to futz around with a stronghold. Back in Morrowind, you just went into an empty house and that was yours, right? Guess this is where I just live now. There are places that you can do that in Oblivion, but, you know, in a more officious term, I think colloquially when someone says a player home, this is kind of what you mean. And like I said, I probably wouldn't even include Prior of the Nine. It feels so weird to have it here, right? Anyway, that ought to do it. Hopefully you enjoyed yet another silly ranking video. They're such a joy to make. They're very, very stupid. We will probably go on forward and do more ranking videos specifically on player homes. I just wanted to do Oblivion since, you know, some decent recency bias. It's fresh in the memory. Easy to remember all of the information about these things. And, man, hope to see you recommending some more requests or asking for some more requests in the comments or asking for some questions. Anyway, like I said, that ought to do it. Till next time, please take care of each other.